Hi, I'm Tom Marino. At Resnick, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
New Jersey after the storm, next on Caucus, New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by Barnabas Health, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship. The law firm of Gibbons P.C., Cone Resnick, providing accounting, tax, and advisory services for more than 90 years. Verizon Communications. And by QualCare Inc., a local managed care company covering 750,000 New Jersey residents. Promotional support provided by NJ Biz, All Business, All New Jersey, The Star Ledger, and NJ.com, Everything Jersey. And by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. As we all know, last year, Hurricane Sandy caused over $36 billion worth of damage. Joining me here in the studio to discuss strategies for coping with future storms, we have Debbie Manns, Executive Director of New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, Ralph LaRossa, President and Chief Operating Officer of PSE&G, Mike Hernandez, President of rebuildrecover.org, and finally, we have Frank Felder, who is Director of the Center for Energy, Economic, and Environmental Policy at Rutgers University. I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thanks.
Let's make this program about lessons learned. Ralph, you've been with us on Capital Report, One-on-One, our sister programs. You've been on with Mike Schneider on NJ Today. Lessons learned. Now we're doing this program about 11 months after the storm. It'll air after. Biggest lessons from your point of view.
Rebuild the infrastructure, more communication, and more preparedness. Those are the three big ones for us.
You say more communication. Be more precise and specific.
You know, it's in this day and age, we were joking before about Twitter and all the new ways that people have to communicate with each other. It's very clear to me that people want instantaneous information about what's happening to them. And the better we can be at that, I don't care if it's a utility story, it's medical emergency story, whatever the issue is, we have to get to people as quickly as possible because that's what they're used to now.
So you're saying future storm, and by the way, let's all pray that whatever storms come are not as bad as Sandy, but we don't know. That could be. We have to communicate much better and in a different form and fashion to a significant degree via social media.
Well, I think it's all of the above, right? I mean, if you think, I'm an engineer, but so I'm learning all the communication side. But at the end of the day, there's different channels to deliver information to people. For what's good for my daughter, whether it's on her handheld device, whatever one she may be using, is completely different from my parents. They're down in Lakewood. They need different types of information in different ways. My mom is communicating with my daughter on text messaging, but she's not going to be on Twitter. She's not going to be on Facebook. She's not going to get the same information. So we have to find multiple ways to communicate at different levels.
One other quickie before I move to other guests on the panel. From an infrastructure point of view, lessons learned and what we need to do include?
It's all about rebuilding to meet the new standards, whether it's because of the flood zones and what we're trying to do to raise some of our infrastructure, but also to be able to withstand some of the winds and some of the other damage that we've had.
And the program at PSE&G right now is called?
Energy Strong. We're in the process of having those conversations in public hearings, and we hope to be out of the back end of that pretty soon and have some programs in place.
Jump in, lessons learned.
Well, I just want to pick up on the communication aspect. For us, I live in Essex County.
And explain your organization.
Sure,
people do know who they are because they receive,
Because they turn on the light and
they receive, at the end of the month. And we know who they are. And when they're not there or it's not happening, we really are concerned. So they don't know who you are. Let them know.
So New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, we fight for clean water in the New York, New Jersey harbor and the surrounding water bodies. And so, one of the examples we saw right after the storm was all the wastewater treatment plants in northern New Jersey went down. Passaic Valley Sewage Commissioners in Newark, Middlesex County Utilities Authority in Sayreville, and there were millions of gallons of raw sewage just dumping into local waterways. But because communications broke down at the facility and within the agencies, it took 4 days to notify people that there was raw sewage in the water. And by that time, it was too late. People were walking in the
Why did it,
floodwater.
go back to the communication issue, stay on that. Ralph talked about the need to communicate differently, faster, just looking at it just in a dramatically different fashion, you say?
So, for example, at Passaic Valley, their administrative center and their communication center is on the ground floor. They received a storm surge 8 to 10 feet, completely wiped out not just their operations and their electricity, but their communications. The executive director is really communicating via his personal cell phone to the outside world.
So lesson learned there is?
Raise the communications. You've got to
so you
move
can't
them
even-
up to the second.
You have to, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
You physically need to move command centers from where they are to where they need to be, and that has to do with height.
Right.
And what else?
Well, that has to do with.
How about location?
Well, these, lots of our critical infrastructure is located right next to the water. As Ralph was explaining to us earlier, that's where the industry developed. And for wastewater treatment systems, that's the gravity system is how it works. So they're in low-lying areas to begin with. So you need to, just like you would a home, you need to elevate your critical infrastructure. And, they didn't have watertight doors on anything. So it just flooded. Most of their infrastructure is underground.
And by the way, folks, as we do this program about a year after Sandy, don't think that we don't understand that a lot of the things that are being said in terms of lessons learned and things that need to be done, don't think that we don't understand that a lot of money is involved, and it's easier said than done. And the Energy Strong Initiative, don't think that we don't understand a lot of money is involved, and how to pay for that is complicated and challenging as well. But so let's understand that, folks. But not doing something is not an option.
Right. No, and whether it's raising infrastructure for Passaic Valley Water, or it's raising infrastructure for some of the petroleum industry that we have in the state, all of those same areas, they're all built around the bays. We have to figure out the right way to do it. But you got to keep cost in mind, because whether it's a competitive business, a regulated business, or in some cases a nonprofit, what you've got to find is the best way to do it for consumers.
Now, help us understand this, Mike. Your story, your organization, rebuildrecover.org, distributes goods and dollars, all sorts of things you did that during Sandy.
Yep.
Okay. Help us understand how you even got into this, and then talk about lessons you learned.
Okay, so it's a pretty unique story. It started, so I own a DJ company, Sounds to Go DJs, in Red Bank, right on the main street. DJs. Weddings, events, DJs.
That was your primary thing?
That is. That's the thing.
Was and is.
Now I got this other baby, Rebuild Recover, that turned into a larger scale project.
Got it.
We have a glass storefront right in the center of Red Bank. So what happened was, we're right in front of Riverview Hospital.
Yep.
Luckily, we were on that same...
Part of the Meridian system.
Yes.
Right, we know those folks.
We're on that same grid. We had power. My vice president, best friend, Anthony Sotaro, he drives by the office a day or two after the storm, see if we have power. He sees the pink uplights we put on events to draw eyes to the studio. He goes in, and internet works, social media, free, brings 7 of us together, formed our board, total grassroots effort. In about 48 hours, we went nationwide, if not global. Jon Stewart walked in the office, told some jokes.
Jon Stewart of Comedy Central?
Yep, he
walks
was in there.
And says what?
I'll never forget it. This is when we knew we had something. Said, you guys are doing God's work. And from that point on, it blew up. We had a lot of celebrities, Fleetwood Mac, they did PSAs for us. Christie got wind of it. He ended up...
Chris Christie.
Chris Christie. He ended up taking us to Congress dinner, a congressional dinner, and we were awarded for that. So it's snowballed. It's still going.
So let me ask you something.
Yep.
So something good comes from Sandy. By the way, we did a week down the shore of programming that, let me tell you something, we highlighted a lot of nonprofits that are making a huge difference. So while there's so much devastation and pain and suffering, one of the really good things that have come from Sandy is how many nonprofits have been created to help friends and neighbors and make a difference. People who didn't even know a lot of these people. If you were to say one of the biggest lessons that you take away from this so far is what?
People really want to help. They do, but they need direction. I've always wanted to help overseas. When I see some kind of disaster, or was the tsunami, I always wanted to do something, but when it's in your own backyard, now it's your chance. And I realized by bringing everybody together, and we had 100-something volunteers within a week, 3-year-olds with their parents teaching them how to donate to seniors to, it was endless. So my biggest lesson was people want to help as long as they're directed and shown what to do.
We're going to make sure we bring you on one-on-one. We do a series called Make a Difference, and we'll bring you on there to feature the work of your organization.
Thank you.
Right now, I want to come to you, Frank. You've told our producers that without electric, we are crippled. You recommend moving substations, trimming trees. Ralph will get into that. And distributed generation. Talk about that, and I have a feeling the two of you are going to have a spirited dialogue. Go.
Well, this is a long-term problem, so we have to think about over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so what we're doing now, we also have to think about how do we plan for the future. So there are a variety of ways of hardening the electric utility. You know much better than I. System or other infrastructure systems, they cost money. So the question is, how do we balance, as Ralph indicated, the cost with the benefits? In my view, the most important lesson out of all this is trust, because over the next 30 years
Trust.
or so, yeah, because it could be trust between the political, the policymakers, industries, social organizations, ground-up organizations, because without that trust, that money is being well spent, that people are being held accountable, that the investments are the right investments, then that will then help solve this problem. But if there's a distrust that the money is not, and I'm not saying it is, but that if we're not planning and thinking about the future, then I think it may undercut and we won't have the infrastructure
I
we
hear you,
need.
Frank, but I'm going to be more precise and specific.
Sure.
You recommend moving substations.
I suggested that that's one of many options.
Okay,
You
but why?
Well, for the low-lying areas, the substations, many of them or switching yards are built where industry is, which is near water based on where they were built 100 years ago. And so you have the flooding and the surges that then wipe out those systems and then everything downstream.
Let me ask you, doable?
Yeah, well, doable. It depends upon what you want to, how you want to classify move, right? So,
Right.
so Frank, and we've discussed this. We can move them up,
Right.
or we can move them away, right? So I think those are both options. The question comes in as to whether or not, at the end of the day, we're going to be able to afford and
Right.
find locations to move them away.
How
We
easy is
absolutely
that?
want to do both. We'd like to do both. We think there's opportunities to do both.
Right.
It's not easy to do because
Yeah,
it's
and I'm not
it's a lot of,
recommending moving every substation. It's just one of many
But
options.
strategically, you're saying that part of the solution moving forward, if we're going to take lessons from Sandy, is to move selected substations, right?
It could be, reinforce them. There's a whole range of options, from tree trimming, which raises difficulties of working with the local communities because no one likes their trees cut down, all the way to much more expensive options, moving or
But there's
protecting.
no one thing right
There's
here,
no
right?
one
Debbie,
thing.
jump
That's
in
my
here.
point.
Well, I think also when we're talking about infrastructure and moving it, there's a lot of talk about hardening infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean? And we're an environmental organization, and we think this urban estuary has been built up so much. We've lost so many of our natural systems already. Our wetlands, our riverfronts have been cut off to the community. So building walls and berms around all this infrastructure, what does that mean for the communities and their connection to the natural systems? And also,
Translate that.
well, so in Newark, they just opened a new waterfront park, and that's for the first time in decades, the only safe place you can get down to the waterfront. Many people don't even realize the Passaic River runs right through Newark, and it was the lifeline of Newark for many years, and they've been cut off for it. For now to say, well, let's put up some berms and some walls, I think you're going to lose that connection people are now starting to regain in our urban communities.
Don't we need those berms? Don't we need those walls?
Well, so let me give you a real life example we're
Right.
dealing with right now. So we have a switching station in Newark that is in a low-lying area that's not far
Ralph,
from.
explain a switching station
Switching
so that people get what it
station,
means.
switching station in our vernacular it covers about 100,000 customers.
Got it.
This particular one not only feeds 100,000 customers, but feeds a major part of the downtown area in Newark. Major
lot of
metropolitan
businesses.
area, a lot of big, we just got Panasonic in there. We've got our headquarters. We've got the folks at Prudential. So a lot of big businesses. So we're struggling with just this right now. This exact issue.
Sure.
Do we build berms around this station?
What's a berm?
Well, you could build it you could build concrete walls, or you might be able to bring some dirt in. You could do different things to try to divert the water. But what we've come up with is exactly what Frank said. We want to build a redundant substation and move it to another part of Newark. Tremendous amount of pushback from the local residents as to whether or not they want that in that location. So we're stuck right in between. We want to deliver good quality service.
Right.
We want to bring it to a major metropolitan area in Newark, and we're caught right between this push and the pull here.
Which is why I went back to the issue of trust and making the connection between energy policy, storms, infrastructure investments, where they're hardening, to social media, to just understanding the problem better.
But here's the thing that I see. Trust in what? Say they did that. Say PSE&G did that. And you trust them that their heart is in the right place and they want to protect the people and the businesses down there.
But trust, but
we
verify.
trust Debbie and her organization that they're coming from the right place and they want to protect the natural resources of the city of Newark, and they believe that they're coming.
This is how we do it. We have that transparent conversation where you lay out, Debbie lays out the analysis. We have people look at it from all over, whether it's citizens or residents or students or you. And then we have a hopefully a reasoned conversation where we talk about the pros and cons. And
where do we wind up?
Well, I don't know. That's the point. The point is to let's see and work through these issues in an open way.
We believe totally in this open process, and we're trying to facilitate that. But here's the issue: how long do we talk?
Yeah, because
no matter what the issue is, let's decide how long.
2 years from now, we get a terrible storm, whatever it is. All right, we can all pray, but prayer is not a plan. Praying is not a strategic plan. You hope and you pray that a terrible storm doesn't come. This conversation is going on. It's an honest conversation. We try to convene and facilitate an honest dialogue. Now, it's not really our job per se. You would argue it's the government's job to do that. But say we bring you together, the governor's involved, whoever the governor is going to be moving forward. We're doing this right before the gubernatorial election. Point being is this: how long can that conversation go on before we get hit again and we're still talking?
Well, I think let's have that conversation. What I see from a environmental nonprofit community is that it's not transparent where the money's going. The account. Well, there's billions of dollars, coming in from the federal government to New Jersey, to New York. There'll probably be ratepayer cases for the electricity and everything that we need to do, our wastewater infrastructure cases as well. And so you're going to be in a much better spot in the end, and you can get there quickly. I mean, I'm not saying you need to have, dialoguing with the community for months and months, but you've got to start that, because when you bring them in at the ground floor and it's a meaningful conversation and they feel like they're having input, then you're going to be in a better place later on.
They mean residents and
residents, the community organizations like Mike's, organizations like environmental communities, and it's tough. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you just put out a solution at the end without telling people how you got there.
I agree, but sooner or later, don't certain leaders have to step up and say, look, different people in the community want different things, and those things are often conflicting. And sooner or later, leaders have to step up and say, look, we can't wait any longer. We're going to make certain decisions. And I respect what you're saying.
Right.
Hey, listen, you just can't ignore public input. That's ridiculous. But Ralph, what is your thinking on this in terms of how long this dialogue goes on, and what do you think must be done?
Well, look, you need to be public.
And I don't want to get you back in.
You need to be transparent. But at the end, we've been at this substation, this switching station conversation in Newark since prior to Sandy. So it is now going on 12 months.
Pre-Sandy.
This was a pre-Sandy site that we had identified because we had done some tabletop exercises and identified this is an area that we needed to
Tabletop
reinforce.
meaning, hey, listen, this could happen. Let's prepare for a potential disaster.
Exactly. So we identified this as a location. We had gone to PJM and planning a whole bunch of that. Bottom line is the conversation's still going on. We want to have a robust conversation, but Debbie hit on it, right? We got to be transparent, get people involved, but at some point somebody's got to say, let's go.
Let me do this. There's another issue that came up. I'm curious about this. Out in your area, Mike, I know where we are, and Ralph's tired of me hearing about this. Trees. I live in Montclair, New Jersey. We have a lot of trees. New Jersey has a lot of trees, right? Down in Red Bank.
Yep.
Were trees an issue?
Not in Red Bank, no. It was a little more inland. It was trees. That was the number one reason we were hearing, especially from like another social site like Jersey Shore Hurricane News, which was everybody's kind of go-to source online to really see what was up. And it was a lot of trees are down here and trees are down there, and there's just not enough crews. Cut the trees, get out there. The storm's pretty much still going on. Lightning, they were holding it off. That was the bigger issue.
So trees are falling on power lines. Power goes out. This is a huge issue up in northern New Jersey, right? You recommend, hey, tree trimming policies more aggressive in that area. You say it's part of it.
I think the key there is for people to understand the implications. So where I used to live in Ridgewood, and other towns.
Lots of trees.
Lots of trees. No one wants them cut down, understandably. And then when a storm happens, then they wonder why. Yeah. And so that people need to just understand and make that connection. and go from there. Now, there are other alternatives as well, but typically tree trimming is the most cost effective. From the utility side, of course, it affects the environment and the
So here's
quality
the
of
thing.
life.
Here's the thing. I don't want to go in circles again,
Right.
but in our community, when there's a discussion, a robust discussion about tree trimming and ultimately some trees coming down, more trees coming down. We had a tree come down literally right in front of our house, an old tree that we've been trying to get taken down for years. Didn't get taken down, and it came down literally right in front of our home. Big tree. We had to leave our. We're just one of many. Here's the point. There are a lot of environmentalists who didn't want trees to come down. I'm not blaming an environmentalist, but when the dialogue goes back and forth about trees being part of.
See, I might say, I'm from Glen Ridge, which is right next to
Right next,
Montclair.
a lot of trees there too.
And I can tell you, we had a big tree controversy, and I was not leading that charge.
Trees,
That
right?
that was the neighbors. You know, these are folks who probably would not identify themselves as environmentalists, but they aesthetically,
Of course.
these are our trees.
Beautiful.
You can't do this. So maybe I'll push back a little on these tree hugging environmentalists.
No, I didn't. I never said tree hugging. I never said.
It was implied.
And by the way, I think tree hugging and hugging is wonderful. Tree hugging is beautiful. I'm just going to ask
Just
this
don't
question.
hug it when it's falling.
Yeah,
Right?
don't hug it when it's falling. We agree.
Yeah.
Ralph, can you talk about the implications, or the implications of this, of us holding on to trees to the point where, and our trees, because they are beautiful, to the point where it becomes potentially dangerous, particularly in a storm. Talk about that.
Well, you've got two things. One is the obviously the big trees, and that was the conversation you just had. But you also have growth that just takes place, and it gets beyond the norm, and we're not trimming back as much as we should. Frank's absolutely right. We want to trim. We go out and we trim trees today. It's the question of to what level of and how far we go with the trimming, because Debbie mentioned it. We've got people that are local. It really means a lot to them to have that
Yes.
tree and to have that foliage and to look out their window and see it. But at the end of the day, there's a trade-off. And as long as people can understand the trade-off,
What is
the
the
trade-off
trade-off?
on trees is real simple. Every time your VCR, those that still have a VCR,
Ralph.
so you see how close I am.
Right.
But if you come home and you see
beta.
your clocks, beta VHS, right? But you're you see something blinking in your house at the end of the day. That's because we had a momentary interruption. What's a momentary interruption caused by? 99% of the time, it's a branch coming in contact with a wire. Right. And so it's interrupting the power for a short amount of time, and as a result, you've experienced some problem in your home, and you've got to go around and be bothered and mad at the utility.
So therefore, when it comes to trees, what do you think the conversation should sound like?
I think it should be an open conversation with all of the people who are impacted by those decisions to say, okay, we can leave some of these trees, or we can stop some of the interruptions that you've been having.
So one of the things we did in Glen Ridge was we started a shade tree commission, which it's regulatory by law, and it has statutory powers, and it can, that could be the forum where you make these strategic long-term decisions about how to manage your trees. And so I would recommend towns at least
Their
start a
own
shade
commission.
Yeah.
The only problem with that sometimes you get into local rule. And so what happens in Glen Ridge, no offense, is really impacted by the people in Montclair, because some of the lines run from Montclair into Glen Ridge. And so you've got backyard services that are feeding. So it's not only the shade tree commissions, but it's individual homeowners that are making some of those decisions impacting
Why can't
your
this be
reliability.
easier? Could you tell us real quick about Jetson Homes? Jetson Homes, prefab homes that will be affordable to all, right?
Yep.
After a storm like Sandy. Tell us about that.
So I'm sitting here, listening to this entire conversation, thinking we're in 2013. I kind of think it's funny how we're talking about trees falling on power lines when, maybe this is a sign to us all of like a reset. Solar's coming down in price. There's a lot of different wireless technologies. I don't know how much research and development's going into that. Different ways for energy and energy sources. So when Sandy happened and we noticed everybody was out and homes needed to be rebuilt, we kind of looked at this and said, well, wait a second, we can rebuild, but rebuild for 2013
and 14
and on, instead of the way it's always been done. So Jetson Homes, it's a brand new company we formed, looking to do just that.
Cheaper?
Yes.
Than what? Than the normal way of, average way of?
Solar power. What we want to do is create net zero communities.
So stick-built home, different from a prefab home in terms of cost. What else?
Quicker, it's efficient, it's tighter envelope on the building. Most builders that we've talked to said if they could build their own home, they would do a modular home.
And those are good ideas. The issue, though, with Sandy, if you lose the power, even with solar, the distribution lines, you won't have electricity.
So solar doesn't guarantee, Frank, what?
That's right, because it, first of all, you have to have sun, so at night, either you have to have a backup storage and you have to have the protective equipment. I hate to sound like
it's
Mr.
true.
No.
No, you just bring out
Solar's a
real
great
issues,
idea. It's just, it goes in concert, and therefore, this is why I think this is a long-term policy or process.
Let me just say this to recap, a few seconds left. You are coming back on one-on-one to talk about your organization. All of you, I want to thank you. I thought we were going to solve all the problems after Sandy. We did not do that, but you did a great public service. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Barnabas Health, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Cone Resnick, Verizon Communications, and by Qualcare Inc. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios. This program has been made possible in part by County College of Morris.
Not all County College of Morris students look like me.
Some look like me.
Or me.
Or me.
Or me.
We all come to CCM at different stages of life and for different reasons.
I plan to transfer to a university.
I'm training for a new career as a nurse.
But we all know one thing. CCM is where we want to be.
So check out the website.
Check out the website.
Check out the website.
And let CCM connect learning and your life.